Hey, while we're waiting, did you see the abandoned match between Bochum and Mönchengladbach in the German Bundesliga?
Yeah, where the AR got struck by a bottle.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, pretty crazy that at a match of that level, they abandoned a match.
In this day and age, nothing surprises me.
Hey, Alan, how are you?
I'm doing okay, Aaron. I'm slowly but surely regaining some strength. My blood is recovering, but it's going to be a little time till I'm back on the pitch.
Well, you take care of yourself, okay?
Oh yeah. I'm getting stronger. I'm taking. Now that the weather's getting better, I can walk outside because I've been so leery about walking in stores and stuff just because the amount of people and my immune system is still kind of in the crapper.
Folks, we'll get started momentarily. I got to get Paula in. Still waiting for Paula to get in.
Evening, guys. Tonight, we're gonna continue our advanced mentoring and getting ready for this upcoming season. And I think it's going to be a rather challenging season ahead. The numbers will be low, maybe as low as we're fearing, but you're either going to be refereeing by yourself, or chances are good you're going to be refereeing with somebody brand new. We have more new referees right now than we have returning referees. So that's going to be a challenge in of itself. So some of the things that you normally would do may or may not work, and you may have to start to readjust some of your thought process. So we're kind of just kind of going back to some basics. This is a wide variety of people on this call. There are some newer and some very experienced. So some of this may seem basic. However, it's going to be one of those years where what worked last year isn't going to work this year. Doug, can you put up the presentation, please? While Doug is getting it ready, I can start. We're talking about the it factor. So what is it that creates an atmosphere that makes you a successful referee? So to start with, I want you all to think about some of your strengths and your weaknesses, because that's what can get you into trouble and or out of trouble. So to just kind of quickly go through this, you're basically one of four colors. If you're a green, you like lots of facts, figures, you like organization, you like orderly things, you're mathematicians, scientists, you are constantly gathering information. Your uniform's all together, your equipment's where it should be, you're not running around unorganized. If you are a yellow, you are an extremely hard worker, but you do not like to take charge. You work very, very hard throughout the entire match. You tend to be an AR because you don't like to be the one making all of the decisions. If you are a blue, you're someone who likes to take charge, but you do it with a sense of humor. And if you are a red, you are a bull in the china shop. You like to take control, and it's your way or the highway. Now, nobody is probably all of just one color. Most of us are a variety of colors, but we have stronger traits in one of the groups. It's important to know this, because if you're working with new people that you haven't met before, you have to work within their strengths and weaknesses, just like they have to work within yours. If you have 3 reds show up to the field, it's challenging. You have 3 greens, you may never get the game started. You're trying to gather too much information. I'm being extreme here, but you want to avoid getting into shouting matches with players or coaches, and you want to not have anyone take you out of your game so that you miss a crucial decision. So sticking to your strengths is important. Don't try to be someone else. You are the best you that there is, but you need to be mindful of your entire crew's personalities, strengths, and weaknesses. And it's not like it's a conversation you're going to have. It's just something you need to figure out. Just like when you step in the middle of the field, there are 22 players, 22 personalities you're dealing with. So with that in mind, Doug, you want to hit the next slide? So body language is how we judge others and how they judge us, and the outcomes are. Next slide. So I'm sure many of you recognize that's Mark Geiger. And in this picture, his body language, he's surrounded by players, but he's upright. he's big, he looks calm, he's confident. Next slide. So interesting, when people watched a 30-second soundless clips of real physician-patient interactions, their judgments of the physician's niceness predict whether or not that physician will be sued. It's a pretty powerful statement if you think about it. Judgments of political candidates' faces in just 1 second predicted a huge percentage of US Senate and gubernatorial race outcomes. What that is saying is you are judged from the moment you get to the fields. So when you arrive late, or you're not dressed, or you're screwing around, players have already formed judgments of how effective you're going to or not be. Next slide, Doug. So nonverbals are another way we are judged. So what are nonverbal power dynamics? Next slide. So in the animal kingdom, they are about expanding, making yourself big, stretching out, and taking up space. And most of us know that that's a cobra. They get big. Mick Jagger and Oprah Winfrey. Those are people that are very powerful and have a lot of self-confidence. Next slide. Posture, smile, professional, crisp, all lead to positive images. The images you see on your screen right now are referees that are confident and enjoying themselves. Next slide. I like this particular slide because it's the universal signal of runners when they cross the finish line. What makes this one stand out to me is this runner is blind, has been blind his entire life. Yet that feeling of joy and exuberance when you've won the race is just something that comes natural. So if you're having a great game, you're naturally going to show that kind of positivity versus if you're having a tough game where it's a little beyond your capabilities or you're just struggling that day mentally or physically, you're not going to show this. Next slide. These are 2 images of powerless people. Powerless situations are if you think about a middle school classroom, or a middle school lunchroom, not a fun experience. A waiting room at a hospital. A lot of people feel like this when they are having to meet with their boss or interviewing for jobs. Winning a big game for the first time, or you had a really rough game with a team, short while ago, and you're refereeing the same team again. This is how you're feeling. Next slide. So what do we do when we feel powerless? These are some pictures of how people react. The one that bothers me the most is the one where the coach is screaming at the adult referee, and that's an adult. And yet we have a huge chunk of youth referees at our games. And when people are screaming at them, you'll watch the referee retract into the field. They stop blowing their whistle, yelling at officials. I've never understood why people do it. It doesn't work in the manner that they hope it will. In fact, it works just the opposite. Next slide. So the thing you have to think about is high power poses, giving yourself the upper hand. Every one of these pictures are power poses that people can take to make themselves look and feel more assertive. The Superman pose, which is the young woman with her hands on her hips, I joke with referees all the time with, and they make silly faces, but then they do it, and it makes them feel stronger before they hit the field. This is something I work on with brand new referees when they are just too scared to go out in the middle and blow the whistle, all the way up to our regional referees who are freaking out before their fitness test, because it gives them a chance to take a deep breath, open up their stance, think positive thoughts, and convince themselves that they can do something. Next slide. Low power poses are, crossing your legs. You see this with ARs all the time. Folding your arms, looking down, backing up when a coach is screaming in your face. Next slide. So our minds change our bodies. Can possibly our bodies change our minds? So what do the minds of the powerful versus the powerless look like? They actually feel like they are going to win, even at games and at times when they're in hopeless situations. They think abstractly and they take more risks. Next slide. Warren Beatty says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. So if you think about that, will you do things differently when you're out on the field, or will you continue to do things that will continue to ruin your reputation? Go on. Arthur Ashe says, one important key to success is self-confidence. An important key to self-confidence is preparation. So the things that I want you to think about right now is our first actions that we can do to give a feeling to teams and coaches that this is going to be a great game is showing up, checking the field, making sure it's safe, checking in players, control the controllables, telling players no jewelry, things that will help prevent you from having to take action once you're on the field. You should have a couple of different pre-games, and if you haven't written them out, I would suggest rethinking about it this year, because we are going to be working with so many new different referees with very little game experience and probably being put into situations where they don't belong. For the first time in 2 years, we have a larger number of adult referees registering. The last 2 years, we've had 0 adults become new referees. This year so far, we had 50, with more that are coming because the adult leagues have been recruiting heavily, and I've been told they have a list of people. So when you're thinking about your pregame, if you're working with people that you've worked with forever, you don't maybe have to be as thorough, but if you're working with people you don't know, make sure you cover coach spectator abuse, how you want it handled. Don't assume that your AR is going to know what to do if the coach is out of control, and don't assume that the AR on the far side is going to know what to do if the spectators are. Make sure you're clear. You talk about how you want to handle it, and then it'll go much smoother, because nothing will look worse if the AR is having a fit. You call the center over, the center doesn't do anything. If you're that AR, you feel helpless. And if you're the center, you might be angry if that wasn't something that you were going to throw the coach out for. So it's important to have those discussions ahead of time. It's important for you to think about what you're going to say to the coach, because you can't just say that's enough, coach. A trick that really works with people is if you give them options. Coach, you've had your say. Now I'm asking you to stop, or I'll have to come back here. And then we move into the discipline area. The coach now has a decision to make. Do I continue, or did I get my say and I'm done? Please, please, please support your ARs throughout this process. If you are a newer official listening to this and that seems really overwhelming, please know you can take your crew members with you to discuss this with the coach. Grab the nearest AR and approach the coach together. There's safety in numbers. Make sure you cover mass confrontation, how you want it handled. Talk about fouls inside or outside of the penalty area. Make sure you talk about misconduct. if you are in a tournament situation and you need overtime that could go to kicks from the mark, make sure you discuss with your crew so you're all on top. There have been a lot of law changes over the last couple of years in those areas, and we do kicks from the mark so seldom that oftentimes we forget about all the different little nuances. I am not suggesting that your pregame should hold up a tournament. Nothing upsets tournament directors more than anything is referees who put them even further behind. But make sure you have some things jotted down on a piece of paper, and you can switch that piece of paper depending on which event you're at. Go ahead and change the slide. Physiologically, there are also differences on two key hormones, testosterone, which is the dominance hormone, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Powerful and effective leaders also have high testosterone and low cortisol. Cortisol levels are very indicative of how we handle stressful situations. If you guys are doing too many games this summer, which the possibility exists for you to be able to do, but your body can't handle, your cortisol levels are going to be very high. You're going to be stressed. Your body can only handle so much, and I want everyone to know that it's okay to tell an assigner no if you cannot do a game. Don't sign up for it in the first place, but if they're bugging you to take extra, you do not have to. If you're young and you've got a ton of energy and you want to take on all those extra games for money, that's great, but just understand that a team is not going to accept, I'm tired because I've done a bunch of games. When you show up for their game, they're going to expect you to give 100%. Go ahead. So can we fake it until we make it? Tiny tweaks can lead to big changes. Can power posing for a few minutes really change your life in meaningful ways? In other words, fake it until you make it. Click that. Go ahead, Doug. So what does that exactly mean? You're going to come up with your own little head how to best cope in that particular situation. You're getting your cortisol down and your testosterone up. You don't want to leave the game feeling like, oh, I didn't show them who I am. You want to leave showing them, I feel like I refereed a fair, safe game. I like my performance. I think I did well. That's how you want to leave it. So there are things that we have to discuss that will help you come up with this. If you are not having a good game and the coach is yelling at you and it's taking your concentration, you're going to finally get exasperated, turn around to yell at the coach, and you're going to miss the ball going in the back of the net with two players down on the ground in the penalty area, and you're not going to have any idea what happened. So this is why we're discussing this now, and I want you to start thinking about how you handle those challenging situations before you get into them and you can't do anything about it. Next slide. So how do we use our personality to help us in matches? These are some pictures of cooperation that referees do. We have the normal tools in our belt. We have cards, we have whistles, we have flags, but we can use our personality in other ways. It's okay to have fun with players. It's okay to smile and joke around with players. There are times when we cannot joke. We need to be very stern. We need to be strong in our convictions. We need to have presence. We keep talking about angle versus proximity, and we tell you to sacrifice proximity to make sure you get the angle. But then you have to make sure that once you blow that whistle and you're 20 yards, 30 yards away, you continue the run. So by the time the player looks up, you're standing right there. When working with kids, be sure you remember to include them in the pregame talk, make sure you ask questions. Are you comfortable? Is there anything you don't feel confident? Sometimes kids don't appreciate you saying, do you have any experience? Are you capable? Instead, just ask them if they're comfortable with making those decisions. And if not, help them find a way to communicate with you so that you're both on the same page. Go ahead. People may hear your words, but they will feel your attitude. So how well you function in a crisis is a true test of your leadership capabilities. And whether we physically recognize it every time we hit the field, we are in a leadership position. We are guiding players through a game. We don't control players, but we set the tone. If we're not looking at our ARs, we don't have good eye contact, either the AR will start to feel not appreciated and will kind of quit. And then when you need them, they won't be there. If the AR isn't paying attention and the referee's looking over for help, it's frustrating on that end. So these are the types of things that if we prepare properly before the match, we look like we're a well-oiled machine, which helps even when we maybe don't feel like it. We're faking it until we make it. Next slide. Dynamic leadership and tactics for success. Think the referee's personality is their greatest opportunity to influence actions in the game in a preventative manner. Using preventative refereeing to modify behavior early in the match, remember to influence the future with actions in the present. So basically what they are saying is the more prepared you are, the better off you are. So it's great if you've been running and you can physically be prepared for, the physical demands of a game. It's great if you know the laws of the game. But if you haven't stopped to think about what are the best words for me to use to calm a player down who's upset, to get a coach to recognize that they are being public, personal, and provocative in their comments, and you now need to deal with discipline, or you need to ask a coach to walk across the field to deal with parents and spectators who are acting out of control. If you don't think about those things, you're going to use the wrong words. When we're angry and we want a coach to be quiet, yelling "shut up" doesn't work, because if a player said "shut up" to us, we would react with a caution. And if we haven't thought ahead of time of how we can engage with people, it's a lot more frightening. And half the time we don't deal with something, it's because we can't come up with a quick solution, or we can't come up with a way to do it that doesn't back us into a corner. And so if you take some time now before the season starts and you're starting to think about the laws, you're getting your requirements done, making sure your uniform is washed, making sure your kit's all together, it makes for a rougher start. If you can start to do this now as the season gets closer, you'll be prepared and ready to hit the field. Next one. Practice makes perfect, and fake it until you make it. I like this slide because it just shows that we do all kinds of things to get ready for the season. And I thought it was very interesting. In 2002, I was in England refereeing, and the referees in England, if they are ARs, stand in front of a mirror and practice signaling. I don't know that I've ever really done that. Prior to that, I did it afterwards because I thought it was kind of a brilliant thing to do. You can have someone tape you if you want to know what you look like when you're refereeing, but looking in a mirror and practicing signaling kind of reminds you what your posture needs to be and how to do something. Running together, warming up as a crew beforehand. I think we don't spend enough time communicating with each other during games. And frequently, after the game is done, we blow our whistle and everybody says bye, goes to their cars and goes home. And we don't take those few minutes to say, how did the game go? What went well? What didn't? What do you think we could have done differently? What do you think we did well? I highly recommend for people that are struggling with a particular concept to journal. Take 2 minutes and write down, what you tried and whether it was successful or not. If it wasn't successful, cross it off your list and try something else. And if you're running out of ideas, hopefully you have a mentor. This year, we have taught 4 classes so far, and we have 1 remaining class for mentors. There are a lot of clubs that are very concerned about the lack of officials returning and have made a concentrated effort to set aside money for mentoring. And they have sent some people from their clubs to take the mentor course. Some of you may be asked to mentor that will not be a certified mentor, and please know that you don't have any liability coverage. If that's the case, if mentoring is something that you would like to do, you should approach maybe the club you work for to see if they will hire you as mentors. The SRC has a few events where we bring in others, but we don't have as many. I want clubs to be taking on this financial endeavor. We can't keep upping fees for referees to make us better. The clubs need to have an investment in this. We're part of their game triangle. They can't have a game without coaches, players, or referees. But our last mentor class is on April 2nd. If you have never been assessed or mentored before, there's a chance you will be this year. The goal is for a mentor, all we're doing, or an assessor, is watching you. So our goal is to just help you find areas where you maybe felt things didn't go quite the way you wanted to, and to figure out an alternative method to get to the place where it would have gone easier for you. Your personality is yours. Don't try to be funny if you're not a funny person. If you are a more serious person, there is nothing wrong with that. You don't want to try things that take you completely out of your comfort zone in a big situation. Arrive early, smile, talk to the players, do anything that puts you at ease. If you don't have a pregame ritual, you might want to think about starting one. I used to listen to "It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll" before I went to the match. That pumped me up. And before the game started, I would say an Our Father and a Hail Mary, because it was calming for me. If you like poetry, recite a poem fast in your head, anything that will reset you. If you're in the middle of a game and things are going well and all of a sudden they're not, you need to stop and reset yourself. So you use something that you can quickly do, either visualize or chant in the back of your head, that will get you back in the space you need to be. You're only as good as your last whistle, so to speak. And so each play, you're being judged. It's not just you make 1 or 2 things correct and everybody relaxes and just goes on. You're constantly being judged during a game. And that can be a lot of stress for people if you're relatively new. I think that's the last slide, Doug, but that's the last slide. So it's kind of a review of best practices for most of you, but it's a good thing to think about, because our numbers right now are 1,000. We have 1,050 people that are approved registered referees. We typically have between 42 and 4,400 referees on the field. I can't really give you an accurate number of what's been out there for the last 2 years. Because of COVID, many people registered and then didn't referee. And then with that summer off in 2020, people decided, oh, gee, it was nice to go boating, or it was nice to go bike riding, or it was nice to pick up other hobbies and didn't come back. So our numbers have been kind of skewed. Right now, we have an additional 900 that have started the work, but today I received 10 emails from people who want refunds. So I don't know where we're going to end up. My best guess is between 22 and 2,500. Could that possibly be enough referees? It could be. I'm just not sure how many referees we actually need. Troy Coors and I were just talking about this. He assigns for the adult league and he assigns for Lakeville. And so he's putting together some facts and figures, and we're going to try to figure out really how many refs do we need to give clubs a more accurate picture, and working on what age groups do we mostly need? Because it's great that we have a lot of 13 and 14-year-olds that are getting out there and earning some money and developing good leadership skills and decision making, but they can't really do the U15 and up game. And so we need more young adults. We still are hurting from the 18 to 40-year-old category. We have a lot of 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds. And believe it or not, this year we have more 70-year-olds that are coming in for the very first time. I'm not exactly sure what they're thinking, but hopefully, you know, they have the stamina and the fitness to be able to handle that. If you guys are having difficulties with coaches or spectators, I would really like to encourage you to deal with it quickly and swiftly this year, because clubs are open and starting to discuss accountability. What we really need is a zero tolerance policy in the state, and it's hard for people to figure out how to do that. They don't have the staff. They literally would have to find club people to be at every game. And so, unfortunately, it's going to rely on the referees to do that. If you guys are not, if you have never seen the Ask, Tell, Dismiss videos that Doug put together, it's not Ask, Tell, Dismiss anymore. It's Ask, Caution, and Send Off. But it would be good for you to check out our library. We have those presentations on our YouTube page. You can email me for the link. I can give it to you. It's probably a good idea to make sure that that speech goes in every one of your pre-games. If you are an AR and the referee doesn't discuss it, please question him or her and say, what are we going to do about this? If you're working with somebody that is putting up with abuse and doesn't want to deal with it, if you send me an email, I'll try to reach out to that person, not in an angry or threatening way, but to encourage them to develop the skill set to be able to approach coaches when they're out of line. Please continue to fill out the incident reports. When I receive those, I follow up with the referees at the game. I follow up with coaching directors of the two teams in hopes that perhaps they could give some extra guidance to those coaches. If it's their fans that are an issue, same thing. I work with the club personnel to deal with their spectators. It's 8:10 right now, and I don't, Doug, do you think we have time to run through that discrimination series, or do you think we should just verbally talk about it?
We covered the discrimination series on the first Zoom meeting.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I said we covered the discrimination series in the first Zoom meeting.
I know we did, but I feel like I need to do that a lot this year. So I'll just briefly kind of go through it. Given the political climate in our state and just the world in general, between social media and people just being more aware of having a voice and a say, people are less tolerant of racial discrimination, homophobic slurs, gender biases. What else am I missing? Heredity, just inappropriate, rude comments in general. So if you are at a match and a player approaches you and tells you that one of the opponents has used the N-word on them or called them gay, if you did not hear it, obviously you cannot discipline it, but you need to stop the game. You need to bring the coaches and the captains together, and you need to address it. If that person does not feel like they've been heard, it's going to continue to cause a problem. We've had a couple of just really nasty incidents where the referees didn't hear it, so they didn't deal with it. And it ended up being, bench clearing brawls on the field and a fight leaving the facility after the game. It doesn't go away. If you hear it, obviously you will deal with it immediately with a red card. And be sure you check in with the player to make sure they feel like that you handled it correctly and that they want to continue playing. It is very possible that a team will feel like they don't want to continue playing that other opponent. What you would do is put it in the game report and send me a copy and send the league a copy. If you have to ever abandon a game, be sure you put it in the game report, put the time, what the score was, what the issue was, and send that both to us and to perhaps the assigner as well. It's a good thing for them to be aware of, and the league. Does anybody have any questions or concerns regarding anything that we've talked about so far?
I have a corollary question.
Okay.
I happen to be an assigner,
Okay.
and I got a report from a referee late last fall. It was almost one of the last games, that they felt that a particular player on a team was being targeted by the other team. This one individual kept getting fouled by multiple members of the team, and a couple yellows were handed out, but it was always this same player. And I don't know if there was a racial thing or if this was retribution for a previous game, but I was a little unsure how to handle that. Do you have any advice?
Sure. So that actually could be a team tactic if that's one of their best players, right? You're going to get them, then you're going to get them, then you're going to get them, hoping that it doesn't look like persistent misconduct, but that is persistent misconduct because it is an action being done to the same player. So then you nail the next person that does it, and that sends a message. You can talk to both coaches, continue to referee a game, handing out the appropriate punishment as needed, but I'm not sure that, because I don't know the specifics of why that player was being targeted, I don't know that I'm actually addressing the real issue. But your advice back to the referee is they can put it in the game report, the league has it, they should report it to the coaches, and they could also send me a report in case I get additional reports on that situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes. I got a report, and then I was unsure what to do with it, particularly as it was the last game of the season.
Okay. There's, besides Doug, there's two national coaches like myself on this call. Troy or Artie, do you have any advice for that?
Say it again. You mean that I heard him say that he wasn't sure what to do with the report or with the information. Is that right?
Correct.
That was right, because it was the last game of the season, and it was it was a verbal report from me from the center referee saying that, you know, there happened to be this like one player who kept getting fouled. And, you know, the worst part of it was the fall season. So this was like U13 and below. It happened to be a U13 female match. And they just kept like pounding on this one player.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty hard to report that because it's subjective. You know, and then you'd get into like video clips. At that point, I think like you as an assigner, just like I would do, I think the best option there is kind of referee education and the call to the referee. You know, we can then try to prevent it going forward. But when it's so subjective like that, I just feel like we'll get ourselves into a rabbit hole we can't get out of, right? So.
Artie, do you have anything different?
No, I said do not want to go down to a deep rabbit holes. If it's definitely a good idea to talk to a referee, even from feedback and how to deal with it. If he comes up with it the next time, as to how to and what to, more of that nature, because nothing is in writing. It's all verbal. It's all hearsay.
Do you have anything to add, Doug?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, concerns? Oh, there's something on the chat. Okay, the question is, last year I reported a homophobic slur to a center ref. The comment was right in front of AR1. Blows me away, he did not hear it. The center ref ignored me and said, "Coach, I'm not babysitting you tonight." If a ref ignores a comment when reported, what can be done to coach the referee on how to handle those situations? I think the center referee did not respond to you telling them about the homophobic slur because they didn't know what to do. I mean, we haven't had specific training on that. That's why we presented it at, you know, the very first class. At the next two remaining ones, either at the beginning or the end, I will remind people again that it should happen. This may take a while to assimilate this information throughout the state. I think you would want to report it to me because it gives me a chance to call up the referee and mentor them through the situation. I think people tend to ignore things that they don't know how to deal with. And sometimes that makes people very uncomfortable and they don't know what to say and they don't know what to do. But that would be my suggestion, is that you know, email me or somebody else on the SRC. Any other questions or concerns?
Hey, Paula, this is Jordan. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
I got a scenario that popped into my head. So let's say I do get an allegation. We're in a competitive youth game, and I get an allegation from a kid. We stop play. We gather the coaches and captains, you know, we deal with all of that. During that time, are you wanting, at the end of all of this, are you wanting to add more time because of dealing with this? Are you wanting a stopped clock? What, during that situation, kind of what would you like with clock management?
Well, that could be a loaded question. If you're in a tournament, they may have very strict rules on adding time. If you're on a field where the lights are going to go out and you're going to lose time, that's also going to indicate it. If you have a stoppage for something that you're dealing with, just like you would with an injury or anything else, you have the ability to add time for that. It's a 10-1 game. I wouldn't waste time adding time on. One thing I wouldn't do is stop your watch.
Okay.
It's risky stopping your watch. If you forget to restart it, then you're kind of screwed. Just let your watch keep running and pay attention to how long it takes for you to deal with the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions or concerns? I do not have specifics on the upcoming State Cup and President's Cup games yet because registrations are still open. I do know they have a full slate of State Cup teams. I spoke with Steve May today. President's Cup is a little leaner, so I'm not sure how that'll work. The first week in May is the President's Cup play-in games. The second week is the State Cup. And then it's the third week is playoffs, semis, and finals for both tournaments. All the games will be played up at the National Sports Center. The finals are Memorial Day weekend. We will be holding a referee academy, and more information about how to apply for that will come out closer. That's run by Troy and Danny on semifinal day. And then Todd Sowers is going to be the assigner this year. And I think Brian Wood is going to help. So once we have more information readily available, I will make sure that it is sent out to people and that I broadcast it on, hopefully by the time we meet again in April, we'll have more concrete information. Matt Tiano has also reached out from TCSL to have a referee academy at his State Cup. I do not know the date for sure. My best guess is it would be the Saturday, which is the first Saturday in June at his event. So that would be a couple of opportunities for referee academies. In addition, I am running a referee academy at the USA Cup, and it'll be done during the week-long tournament. So if there are referees that either you're working with, you're mentoring, or you're interested in yourself and you have time during the day to take a week off of work and attend an academy, those are options. Referees are, you're paid to do your games. An academy consists of feedback at the games that you work, plus a little bit of classroom at times and field sessions. It kind of varies from tournament to tournament, but it can be a very beneficial thing to do, even if you've been a referee for a while. Right now, our goal is it's more of an advanced referee academy for the State Cup. For Matt Tiano's TCSL, it'll be for like referees with around 3 to 4 years of experience, and USA Cup will kind of be dictated by what we have. There are about 5 of us national coaches that are at USA Cup each year. So we have the ability to look at who applies and adjust our academy to the needs of the group that applies, if that makes sense. Any other questions or concerns? Any other topics anybody wants to say? Artie, are you getting enough sleep with the newborn? No, I'm sorry. Artie has a new son, Leo, correct? Oh, good. I haven't lost my mind yet.
I'm usually up around 2.
It's overrated anyway, so you know.
You can sleep when you're dead, Artie.
I know. Thanks, Alman. I appreciate it.
Any other stories, questions? Otherwise, we can certainly end a couple minutes early. I want to thank you guys all for coming. Next time we have foul recognition, and I'm going to be working with Doug on how to get the videos to work, but we're going to use FIFA Red clips That is the latest material coming from FIFA. It's some really good things. We'll talk about. I'm not sure of the exact follow selection that I'll choose. I'm going to be looking at the clips and seeing what will work best for a large group. If you have something specific that you would like to see covered in that one regarding foul selection, send me an email and I'll try to pick clips on that topic. Otherwise, thank you for coming on, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.